There's two ways to do this, and Reserve Protocol is actually very flexible in the way governance works. We allow you to, if you disable this checkbox right here, we allow you to deploy with your very own custom governance contract. So you can write your own contract, and then you can simply paste the address of that contract in the owner address bar right here. You can see there's also a guardian address and a poser address, which I'm going to explain in a second. And then you can also decide what state your RToken should be in after deploying, either fully functional or still paused. If you still want to make some adjustments and then unpause it later, you want to use that option right here. So as I said, you can create your own governance contract, own governance system, and deploy with that. Now, you can also decide, if you say, I don't want to do that, I just want to use a general governance system, then you can deploy with what we call Governor Alexios, which is the governance system that Reserve has designed. If you use to deploy with Governor Alexios, again, you can decide to deploy with this guardian address and poser address. And there's a bunch of parameters that you can define to tweak a little bit on how Governor Alexios should work for your RToken. And again, the same state option right here. Now, to make you very clear what exactly Governor Alexios is and what these parameters are, I'm going to take you back to the whiteboard and I'm going to dive into Governor Alexios and what exactly it means. Governor Alexios is the default governance contract for RTokens. The way it works is similar to existing decentralized governance systems, where any of the RSR stakers can create a proposal, such as updating the RToken basket or changing the revenue distribution. That proposal will then be voted on by the RSR stakers, and when it passes, it will be executed on-chain automatically. Within that system, there are certain parameters, such as the proposal threshold, the minimum amount of state RSR one needs to hold in order for them to be able to create a proposal. There's also the snapshot delay, a delay between the proposal and the voting period that allows governors to accumulate more RSR to increase their voting weight. We have the voting period, which is the period the vote goes on, and a quorum, the minimum amount of votes that need to be cast in order for that proposal to be eligible for execution. And then there's the execution delay, a delay between the ending of the voting period and the execution itself. And this delay is in place so that if a malicious governor's proposal would be passed, that a certain emergency button can be pressed to make sure that it does not go through. And we're going to look into that emergency system right now. So these parameters, they can be edited. The blue values you see right here are the default values suggested in register, but you can tweak them as you wish for your RToken. Now, the Governor Alexios system has two distinct system states it can be in. It can be paused and it can be frozen. When a system is paused, or when an RToken system is paused, it means all functions are disabled, with the exception for just general ERC20 functions, redemptions of the RToken, staking of RSR, and paying out rewards to the RToken holders or the RSR stakers, or anyone else. The system can also be frozen, which means the same thing. All functions are disabled, with the exception for ERC20 functions and the staking of RSR. So these are two systems that are in place to protect the RToken holders in case of an attack or a bug or whatever. Now let's take a look at who can put the RToken system in these two distinct states. Within Governor Alexios, there are certain permissions. We have the pauser permission, the short freezer permission, and the long freezer permission. These permissions get linked to a safety role. And the system is entirely flexible, so you can go pretty advanced, but let's start with a simplified version. If you deploy using the register user interface, you'll be asked to add one or more pauser addresses, one or more guardian addresses, and there's also the owner address. Now, by deploying with Governor Alexios, the owner address is always your RSR state RSR governance. So the state RSR governance can put the system in either the pause state or the frozen state with these three permissions. The pauser role is pretty simple. You're basically giving an Ethereum address the possibility to put the system in the pause state. The guardian, by default, has all three permissions as well. It can put the system in the pause state, in the frozen state by short freezing, or in the frozen state by long freezing. But the Guardian by default also has another permission, which is it has an emergency button to cancel proposals. And this goes back to this execution delay. So if a malicious proposal gets passed, then in this 3-day period, the Guardian address can cancel that proposal and make sure the malicious proposal does not go through. Also keep in mind that all these rules are optional, so you can actually assign them to the null address, so you don't have those, but we put them in place for safety reasons. Now, as I said, the system is pretty flexible, so after deploying with these standard roles, you can actually create your own roles and your own set of permissions. So, for example, you could have, in a future state of your RToken, you can have any ERC20 address be the pauser, any ERC20 address be the pauser and only be able to freeze the system for a short period of time. You can have another address that can only freeze the system but not pause the system. And you can have the Guardian address only be able to cancel proposals but not have any of the other permissions. And there we go. Now that we know exactly how Governor Alexios works, we can go ahead and deploy governance. So I'm going to press this deploy governance button here, and I'm going to have to sign a transaction. And now we just wait for that transaction to be confirmed. And once it is, your RToken will be fully deployed. And there we go. The RToken is now fully deployed, and we can check all its stats, all its settings right here on register. In the next episode, which will be the last episode of this series, we're going to look at minting of your RToken and how you can get early liquidity.